Governor Brian Kemp continues to hold a lead, earning 50% of voters' support over Democratic challenger Stacey Abrams' 45%, according to a recent Insider Advantage Fox 5 Atlanta poll. During an appearance on MSNBC this Sunday, Abrams blamed her flailing poll numbers on misinformation, specifically targeting black men. Let's watch.
I do not believe it's because of a deep well of enthusiasm for my opponent. We know that black voters are often discounted, and unfortunately this year black men have been a very targeted population for misinformation. Not misinformation about what they want, but about why they want what they deserve. And my campaign has been the only one that has very intentionally, thoughtfully, and consistently reached out. That has been misconstrued as concern, when it indeed is just respect.
Abrams' claims were backed by Biden advisor and former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Let's watch.
There is definitely a target toward African-American men, not just to give them misinformation, but to make them so discouraged that they won't show up to vote. And again, I've been a candidate before. I've been in this position before. Going into my race as mayor, 5 years ago, I was 7 points down in the polls going into the week of the election, and I won by more than 800 votes because people showed up to vote.
Joining us now to weigh in, our host of Straight Shot, No Chaser podcast, Tezlyn Figaro, and host of A Fresh Perspective, Jeff Charles. Welcome to you both. All right, I'll start with you, Jeff. What do you think they're talking about when they specifically cite the idea that black men are susceptible to misinformation that discourages them from coming to the polls?
Well, see, but that's the entire problem, though. None of these people actually give examples of the misinformation that is supposedly discouraging black men, that is supposedly fooling us into thinking that maybe the Democratic Party isn't perfect. So to me, like that's the issue. I mean, really what they don't understand is that talking points like that are part of the reason why more black men are becoming disillusioned with the left and with the Democratic Party, and they're becoming more open to seeking out other options, or they'll just say a pox on both your houses and stay home. But really, this is just making excuses for why they are losing with minority voters.
Yeah, Tezlyn, it feels like misinformation as a term is becoming this sort of catch-all that doesn't really mean anything and is used very, very poorly by people who want to, I don't even know what she's trying to say here. Like, it's not hypnotism, it's not mind control. What does she think is happening to black voters to sap their enthusiasm for her candidacy? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm here to help you get it. Number one, over 40 million people have already voted. Georgia has had record turnout. They would have you believe that no black men at all have voted, and that's just simply not true. So rather than saying, I blame you, how about they say, I will do better? Blaming black voters or blaming black men is no different than blaming the person that got cheated on in the relationship. Perhaps if you just cooked more, I wouldn't have cheated. At the end of the day, it is about who is trying to engage these voters and if they failed. And I want to give you this example. Just bear with me quickly. David Axelrod, a white man, a top Democrat, Obama's go-to person, said the other day very clearly that Democrats have failed in their economic message. Nobody is saying that he's spreading misinformation. He said that they are not reaching out the way that they should. Hillary Rosen also said the same thing, which is a top Democrat strategist. No one is telling them, oh, well, you know, you're just spreading misinformation or you don't know what you're doing. And I have to say this to progressives as well. They also do this racist trope, and they call it misinformed voters, low education, low information voters when they don't get their way. It is basically a racist trope that says that black men are lazy, that they're not involved, and it is flat out a lie. And let's talk about targeting voters. Stacey Abrams said they're being targeted for misinformation. Well, guess who's being targeted for actual engagement? The Hispanic community by the GOP has strategically been targeted with over 30 plus diversity centers with over 20 plus strategically in Latino communities, brick and mortar, that says, hey, come on in. We want to tell you about the Republican Party. And so the response to that from Democrats was, hey, well, we're doing advertisement. So rather than blaming black men, why don't you ask the Democrat Party, Why is it that they have not engaged black men or black women, because we do vote together, by the way, and talk about an economic policy that we would adhere to? And so it's a lie. It is a racist trope. It is something that is designed to blame and beat black men with a public scalding when they don't get their damn way. And it has to stop. And I also blame these black pundits who are running with this as well. Misinformation is very strategic. They're not confused. You know, black men, I just went to a reparations rally on Saturday. Thousands of people showed up, more so black men. And they showed up with less than a 2-week notice, with no rapper as a headline, with no political party that pushed it, with no political official that pushed it, with less than 2 weeks, Bree. I've seen political elected officials that can't get 50 people in the room at best. So black men are engaged, but they may not be engaged and they may not be feeling you. The first thing is actually dating somebody, then engaging, and then asking them to get married. Black men are engaged. They just ain't feeling you. So what do you have to do? Come back to the table and say, how can I bring you on? But also don't discredit black men who vote Democrat, but also understand, guess what? Black men are also conservative, and that's just something they're going to have to deal with.
Well, according to New Hill reporting, black voters are worried about being blamed for potential Democratic losses in today's midterms. They are begging Democrats not to fall into what they see as a long-standing pattern. Black voters get blamed after Democratic disappointments and ignored after Democratic wins. I mean, we talked about this a little bit, how there were some folks who worked really hard in 2020 to win Georgia for Democrats who said, look, once they turned around and didn't actually come through with the $2,000 checks and some of the other promises that the Biden campaign had made, the organizers weren't sure they were going to be able to turn folks out again. You know, is this what we're seeing right now in this moment, Jeff? And do you think there are certain pitches that were left on the table that could have actually resulted in higher turnout across the board?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even over the past year and a half or so, if you go on Black Twitter or if you're in other spaces, you see black men complaining about the Biden administration, Democrats in general. Why? Because they made all these soaring promises to get elected. And then now that they're in office, they're doing for every other group except for black people. And now they want to blame it on misinformation. I get why black voters might be concerned about being blamed, because that's what happens when Democrats lose, when black people don't show up. It's like Tezlyn said, the blame doesn't go towards the Democratic Party. It goes towards the voting base. The thing is, you can't say it's misinformation when black men and black women are struggling to make ends meet, when they're going to the grocery store and having to pay almost double, when they're at the pump trying to fill up their cars and paying a lot more money. You can't say it's misinformation. You have to look at the facts on the ground. And this shows a startling disconnect between Democrats and black voters. And, you know, I get on Republicans all the time for how they talk at and about black people. But with these talking points, the Democrats are no better. They may be just a little bit more slick with it. But at the end of the day, they are not delivering on their promises because they have taken black voters for granted for decades. When you're getting over 90% of the black vote for decades without having to do a whole hell of a lot, this is the end result. Except the difference right now is that black people are becoming fed up with it. So if the Democrats don't get it together, this trend is only going to continue.
Yeah.
But why is it, let me ask you this, Bree. When white women flipped on the Democrat Party and they voted for Obama and then flipped with Trump to line up with their white men, when Hispanics has consistently flipped, you know this by working on the Bernie Sanders campaign, that the Latino community in Florida voted to the right, that the Latino community in California voted to the left. Why are those groups looked at as strategic voters? Why are those groups looked at as, oh, they're just well informed and they're leveraging their vote? Why is it when it comes down to black voters, and particularly black men, it is this push on where you just don't know what you're talking about, or maybe if you just had a little bit more information, or perhaps you should just fall in line? That is a problem that is much more deeper than just a political analysis, conversation. It is about, let's go ahead and tie men up on the pole and let's give them a shellacking. That's what this is. And we have to push back at that. And to black men that are saying, hey, I want them to know that they need to respect us, so I'm glad that we get the blame. I say this, I want them to respect you, but respecting you is not blaming you. In a relationship, respecting you is saying, I will do better. I will start cooking. Yeah. I will do all the things I said I was going to do when I decided to marry you. Not saying, well, you should have did better. I will say with this, Boomerang said it best, the old school movie, love would have brought your ass home last night. And it's time for Democrats to show some love to black voters, the same people that held them down for the last 60 years plus.
Well, we have to leave it there. I can't say anything better than that. Thank you both for joining us here today. We'll have more Rising for you after this.